alien tribe, laughed at human men, but they couldn't resist them for mating with him. HFY. The escape pod shuddered violently as it tore through Vylara's atmosphere, trailing fire and smoke. Inside, Darren Novak gripped the manual controls, his knuckles white with effort. Warning lights flashed across the console as the vessel's remaining systems failed one by one. "Come on, just a little longer," he muttered, fighting to maintain a descent angle that wouldn't turn him into a crater. The lush, violet-tinged forest canopy rushed up to meet him, a beautiful but deadly landing zone. The impact came with a deafening crash, sending Darren lurching against his restraints. Metal screamed and tore as the pod carved a deep furrow through the alien soil before finally coming to rest in a small clearing. For several moments, all he could hear was the hiss of cooling metal and his own labored breathing. Darren unclipped his harness with shaking hands, quickly assessing his condition. A few cuts and bruises, but nothing serious, a miracle considering the violence of his landing. The same couldn't be said for his vessel. It was beyond repair, the communication array shattered beyond recognition. "Well, Novak," he sighed, "looks like you're staying a while." 3 days later, Darren had established a makeshift camp using salvaged materials from the pod. He'd cataloged several edible plants according to his scanner and set up rudimentary defenses. His exploration company wouldn't send a rescue team for at least 2 standard months, standard protocol for missed check-ins from frontier scouts. The rustling came without warning. Darren spun, hand instinctively reaching for his pulse. Pistol, only to freeze at the sight before him. 7 tall, athletic figures emerged from the tree line, their violet skin gleaming in the dappled sunlight. They were unmistakably female, with powerful builds that somehow maintained distinctly feminine curves. Silver hair cascaded down their backs, contrasting beautifully with their skin. Their leader stepped forward, towering at least a foot over Darren's 6-foot frame. Her blue eyes glowed with an inner light, assessing him with clear disdain. She wore ornate armor that accentuated rather than concealed her voluptuous figure and carried a spear tipped with an unknown crystalline material. "Look at it," she said in surprisingly fluid standard, though her accent was musical and strange. "So small and fragile, how has its species survived?" The others laughed, a sound like wind chimes that nonetheless carried mockery. Darren straightened his shoulders. "I am Darren Novak, explorer from Earth. My ship was damaged. I mean no harm to your people or your world." The leader circled him, her movement graceful despite her imposing stature. "I am Zaleth, first hunter of the Silvari. You have landed in our sacred hunting grounds, little male." More laughter rippled through the group. One warrior leaned toward another. Perhaps he would make a good pet. He's almost cute. Darren's jaw tightened, but he kept his composure. "I apologize for the intrusion. I had limited control over my landing site." Zaleth's full lips curved into an amused smile. "We shall take you to our settlement. The elders will decide your fate." Her eyes raked over him once more. "Try to keep up, Earthling. Our smallest children move faster than you look capable of." As they led him away, Darren caught Zaleth glancing back at him, curiosity mingling with her dismissal. He had the distinct feeling that surviving this world would require more than just technical skills. It would mean proving himself to a society that saw him as fundamentally inferior. The twin suns began to set, casting the forest in an ethereal purple glow as Darren walked toward an uncertain future among the Silvari. The Silvari settlement rose organically from the forest floor, living structures grown from iridescent flora that pulsed with bioluminescence as twilight descended. Darren walked between towering sentinels of the tribe, their silver-haired heads, turning to watch his progress with undisguised amusement. "The human male stumbles like a newborn fawn. one whispered loudly enough for him to hear. 7 days had passed since his arrival. The elders had permitted him to stay, more as a curiosity than a guest. Darren spent his time learning their language and customs, carefully observing their matriarchal society where physical prowess determined status. That morning, Zalith had approached his dwelling. "Today you will join our hunt," she announced, tossing him a lightweight spear. "Try not to die too quickly." Now Darren stood in the central clearing, surrounded by Sylvari hunters preparing for the ritual. Their armor, crafted from shimmering leaves and crystalline components, left little to the imagination while offering surprising protection. "Nixara wishes to test you," Zalith said, gesturing toward a particularly imposing warrior whose muscles rippled beneath violet skin. "She believes you will provide entertainment." Nixara stepped forward, her height exceeding Darren's by nearly 2 feet. "Small human," she purred. "On my world, males prove their worth through strength. Show us what Earth males can do." The bee circle widened as Nixara twirled her spear with effortless grace. Darren held his own weapon awkwardly, acutely aware of the disparities between them. "The challenge is simple," Zalith explained. "First to yield loses." Her blue eyes held something unreadable as she added, "Nixara has never lost." The crowd erupted in rhythmic chanting as Nixara lunged. Darren barely sidestepped, the crystal tip grazing his shoulder. His scientific mind calculated angles and leverage, while his body reacted on instinct. "You move well for something so small," Nixara taunted, circling predatorily. Instead of responding, Darren analyzed her movement pattern. Each attack followed a distinctive flourish, efficient but predictable. After dodging another thrust, he feinted left before rolling right, using the shaft of his spear to sweep her legs. Nixara stumbled, but recovered with a backflip that drew appreciative calls from the spectators. Her expression shifted from amusement to concentration. "Perhaps there is more to you than appears," she said, advancing more cautiously. Darren didn't wait for her next attack. He darted forward, using his lower center of gravity to duck beneath her guard. He pressed his advantage, forcing her to defend rather than attack, leveraging speed against strength. When Nixara overextended on a powerful thrust, Darren pivoted, redirecting her momentum. The maneuver sent her sprawling, and before she could recover, his spear point rested against her throat. Absolute silence fell over the gathering. Nixara's chest heaved with exertion and surprise. "I yield," she said finally, her voice a mixture of shock and respect. The silence broke into murmurs of disbelief. Darren offered his hand, helping Nixara to her feet, a gesture that caused even more whispers among the onlookers. Later, as the tribe celebrated the successful hunt, Zalith approached. Darren by the communal fire. The flames cast dancing shadows across her statuesque form as she sat beside him. "You fought with wisdom rather than brute force," she observed, offering him a cup of fermented nectar. "Our ways teach that strength defines worth, yet you prevailed without it." Darren accepted the drink, his fingers briefly touching hers. "On Earth, we learn that adaptability often trumps raw power." An interesting perspective. Zalith's gaze lingered on him. "Perhaps there are things our peoples could teach each other." Across the fire, Nixara raised her cup in a gesture of acknowledgement. Other Sylvari regarded him with newfound curiosity, rather than dismissal. "Tomorrow," Zalith said, her voice lowered. "For his ears alone, I will show you the Crystal Falls. They lie beyond the hunting grounds where no outsider has ventured." A hint of challenge colored her tone. "If you are willing." Darren met her luminous blue eyes, recognizing the significance of her invitation. "I'd be honored." Something shifted between them in that moment, a bridge forming across the vast differences of their worlds. The Crystal Falls cascaded down a cliff face of iridescent stone, refracting light into 1,000 rainbow patterns that danced across the pool below. Darren stood transfixed, the scientist in him cataloging the unique mineral properties while the man simply absorbed the beauty. "Our ancestors say the waters carry memories," Zalith said, leading him along a narrow path to the base of the falls. She moved with natural grace despite her height, her silver hair catching starlight from Vailara's twin moons. Today she wore a lighter version of her ceremonial attire, a bodice and skirt woven from luminous fibers that complemented her violet skin. Without her usual armor, the feminine curves of her athletic form were even more pronounced. "It's incredible," Darren breathed, kneeling to touch the crystal-clear water. Tiny bioluminescent organisms swirled around his fingers. "On Earth, we have nothing like this." Zalith settled beside him, her proximity sending an unexpected warmth through his body. "Tell me of your Earth," she requested, her musical accent transforming the words into something almost poetic. Under the double moonlight, they exchanged stories. Darren spoke of Earth's oceans and mountains, of human civilizations and the stars that drove them to explore. Zalith shared tales of Sylvari history, their evolution from nomadic tribes to the complex society they now maintained. "Your people value knowledge as much as strength," Darren observed. "That seems at odds with how you first judged me." Zalith's expression grew thoughtful. "Perhaps judgment comes too easily when facing the unknown." Her luminous eyes studied him. "Among Sylvari, males are smaller, physically weaker. They serve as caregivers and artisans, not hunters or warriors. When we saw you, you assumed I'd fit the same pattern," Darren finished. "Yes." She reached out, her fingers hovering near his face before gently touching the stubble on his jaw, a feature absent in Sylvari males. "You are different in many ways." The touch lingered, sending electricity through Darren's nerves. He fought to maintain his composure. "Difference isn't always a disadvantage." "Indeed." Zalith withdrew her hand slowly. "After you bested Nixara, the elders spoke long into the night. Some believe your arrival was foretold in ancient texts. A star traveler who walks between worlds." Darren raised an eyebrow. "And what do you believe?" "I believe in what I see," she answered, her voice dropping to a whisper. "A being who thinks before acting, who observes before judging." Her gaze intensified. "Who looks at me as a person, not merely a hunter or leader." The confession hung between them, vulnerable and honest. Darren realized that despite her position of power, Zalith rarely experienced being seen beyond her role. "Tomorrow marks the Lunvaria," she continued, changing the subject. "A ceremony celebrating life's renewal. Normally, outsiders are forbidden, but the elders have granted permission for you to attend. At my request." "I'm honored," Darren said, genuinely moved by her advocacy. Zalith stood in a fluid motion, extending her hand to help him up, a reversal of their earlier dynamic. "The ceremony involves a sacred dance between bonded pairs." Her eyes held his. "Those who may choose to mate." The implication wasn't lost on Darren. His pulse quickened as he took her offered hand, feeling the strength in her fingers as they closed around his. "And have you chosen a partner for this dance?" he asked, suddenly aware of their solitude beneath the moons. A smile played at Zalith's full lips. "That remains to be seen, Darren Novak of Earth. The heart's choice often surprises even the chooser." As they walked back toward the settlement, their hands remained linked, a bridge between worlds that neither seemed willing to break. Behind them, the Crystal Falls continued their eternal song, witnessing a connection that transcended species and stars. The Lunvaria ceremony began at twilight. The central clearing had been transformed with spiraling patterns of luminescent pollen and crystal formations that amplified the light of the setting suns. Sylvari gathered in concentric circles, their bodies adorned with glowing body paint that emphasized their statuesque forms. Darren stood at the periphery, wearing ceremonial garments provided by the tribe, a vest and loose pants woven from the same fibrous material as their clothing, though modified to fit his smaller frame. The Sylvari around him still towered over him, but the sidelong glances now held curiosity rather than dismissal. Elder Thaisara, a silver-haired matriarch whose age showed only in the wisdom of her eyes, raised her arms to begin the ritual. "Tonight, we celebrate the eternal cycle," her voice carried across the gathering. "Life seeking life, souls finding completion in union." Drums began a hypnotic rhythm as couples moved to the inner circle. Darren watched, mesmerized, as the Sylvari performed a dance that was both athletic and sensual, bodies moving in perfect synchronicity, telling stories of pursuit, acceptance, and ultimate union. "It is beautiful, is it not?" Darren turned to find Zalith beside him. His breath caught at the sight of her. She wore only a sheer wrap around her hips and intricate patterns of glowing paint that accentuated the curves of her breasts and the powerful lines of her body. Her silver hair had been braided with tiny crystals that caught the light with every movement. "Beautiful doesn't begin to describe it," he answered, not referring only to the ceremony. Zalith's blue eyes held his. "The dance represents our belief that true strength comes from complementary energies joining as one." She extended her hand. "Will you join me, Darren of Earth?" A murmur rippled through the nearby Sylvari as Darren took her hand. Elder Thaisara's expression remained impassive, but her eyes tracked them as Zalith led him to the dance circle. "Follow my movement," Zalith whispered, placing his hands on her waist. "Let your body respond to mine." The drums intensified as they began to move. Darren felt initially awkward, acutely aware of the differences in their physiques and the watching eyes of the tribe. But Zalith's guidance was patient, her touch reassuring as she led him through the ritualized patterns. Gradually, something changed. Their movements found harmony, her strength complementing his agility, her height balanced by his precision. The dance became a conversation without words, a negotiation of space and touch that spoke of mutual discovery. When Zalith lifted him in a dramatic movement that showcased both her strength and his trust, gasps of appreciation rose from the onlookers. As she lowered him slowly, their bodies pressed together, her lips found his in a kiss that tasted of sweet nectar and foreign spice. The world narrowed to that point of contact. Different biologies finding unexpected compatibility, desire transcending the boundaries of species. When they finally separated, the circle had widened around them, giving them space that acknowledged the power of what was transpiring. "The final phase of Lunveria is completed in private," Zalith said, her voice husky with emotion. "If you wish it so." Darren touched her face, tracing the luminous patterns that highlighted her alien beauty. "I do." Under stars unlike those of his birth, Darren followed Zalith to her dwelling, a living structure that pulsed with gentle bioluminescence. Inside, a platform of soft vegetation formed a natural bed. Zalith turned to him, vulnerability now mixed with her strength. "Among my people, this union would create a lasting bond," she explained. "Our bodies will share more than pleasure. They will exchange essence." Darren stepped closer, closing the distance between them. "Where I come from, we call that intimacy. And it's what I want with you." Their remaining barriers fell away as they discovered one another, different anatomies finding complementary pleasures, strange becoming familiar through touch and taste. Their joining transcended physical satisfaction, creating a connection that hummed at frequencies beyond ordinary perception. Afterward, as they lay entwined beneath a ceiling that mimicked the stars, Zaleth traced patterns on his chest. "The elders may not approve of our bond." Darren kissed her forehead. "Then we'll show them why they should." The transmission alert woke Darren from a deep sleep. Beside him, Zaleth stirred, her silver hair splayed across his chest. 2 months had passed since their union at the Lunveria ceremony. 2 months of cultural exchange, deepening bonds, and gradual acceptance from the tribe. He carefully extricated himself and moved to the salvaged communication array he'd rebuilt with Silvari crystal technology. The message was clear. A rescue vessel would reach Vylara within 3 days. "They've found you," Zaleth said from behind him, her voice complex with emotion. Darren turned to face her. In the early morning light, her violet skin seemed to glow, from within. Yes. The next days passed in a flurry of activity. The news of Darren's imminent departure spread through the settlement, prompting visits from Silvari who had grown to respect or even befriend the human explorer. Nixara brought a spear crafted to his proportions. "So you may hunt with honor wherever you roam," she said with newfound respect. Elder Thyssara summoned them to the council chamber, a circular room grown from living trees. "The human's departure raises questions about the bond you have formed," she addressed Zaleth. "Such a union has no precedent." "It need not end," Zaleth responded, standing tall. "I request permission to accompany Darren to Earth as an ambassador of our people." Murmurs filled the chamber. No Silvari had ever left their world. And what say? "You, Darren Novak?" Thyssara asked. "Would you bind yourself to one so different from your kind?" Darren stepped forward. "On Earth we have a saying, 'Home is not a place but a person.' Zaleth is my home now." The elder studied them both. "During your time among us, you have taught us that strength manifests in many forms. Perhaps it is time we expanded our understanding further." She raised her hands in a formal gesture. "Permission granted, with conditions. You must return annually to share knowledge gained, and," her eyes softened slightly, "bring any offspring of your union to know their maternal heritage." The possibility hadn't occurred to Darren. "Offspring? Is that possible?" Zaleth finished, taking his hand. "The essence we exchanged at Lunveria initiated biological compatibility. Our geneticists confirmed it days ago." Her free hand rested briefly on her abdomen. "Life finds ways to bridge worlds, just as we have." The revelation left Darren speechless with wonder. A child, something entirely new in the universe. When the exploration vessel descended 3 days later, the entire tribe gathered to witness the departure. Captain Jimenez was visibly startled by Zaleth's imposing presence beside Darren. "You didn't mention bringing company, Novak," she said, eyeing the Silvari warrior. "Not company," Darren corrected. "Family." As they boarded, Darren caught Zaleth looking. Back at her world, uncertainty briefly crossing her features. He squeezed her hand. "Scared?" Her luminous eyes found his, strength returning. "With you? Never." The ship lifted off, carrying them toward Earth and whatever future awaited a human explorer and his Silvari mate. Below, the tribe raised their spears in salute, their laughter now celebratory rather than mocking as they sent their daughter to distant stars. Inside Zaleth's body, cells divided and combined, human and Silvari DNA weaving together to create something the universe had never seen. A bridge between worlds, proof that differences could become strength, and that love recognized no boundaries, not even those of distant planets circling alien suns. As Vylara receded behind them, Darren and Zaleth faced forward, toward new horizons neither could have imagined alone.